This next chapter, Word Magic, Hebrew translated. A picture appeared on the page around the time when I first did this part 5. From back in 1919, just after the end of World War I. And someone decided to build a monument in New York out of German helmets. So what shape was it built in? Was it an American flag, a bald eagle, or something else symbolising America? No, it was a pyramid. Of all the shapes it had to be a pyramid, didn't it? And this is what I've been saying. They have taken over the whole of the Western world with this Egyptian cult. Israel, Israelite and Jews are its front sleight of hand move. People blame the Jews and Israel when this is an Egyptian cult expansion that originated out of India. Salt Lake City is built around the temple. Anything with the word temple in it is referencing Egypt, Ra and Solomon. Who controls finance? Temple Bar, section of the city of Babylon, the new Babylon. And this is the centre of the crown, which has got nothing to do with the Queen or royalty. And we are specifically referencing the established Templar Church, known for centuries by the world as the Crown. So it's the Templar Church is the Crown. Where did the Templars come from? Jerusalem. The Crown, also known as the Crown Temple or Crown Templar, with all three being synonymous. King James, who wrote the modern-day Bible, replete with letters J in 1611, was a Crown Templar. The Temple Church was built by the Knights Templar in 2 parts, the round and the chancel, which later became the chancellery, money. The round church was consecrated in 1185 and modelled after the circular church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. The chancel was built in 1240, and from the hymn, "And was Jerusalem builded here in England's green and pleasant land," makes far more sense now, doesn't it? Jerusalem is transient, it's not a fixed place. The Temple Church serves both the inner and middle temples and is located between Fleet Street, which houses the UK media, no surprise there, and the Victoria Embankment at the Thames River, and its grounds also house the Crown offices at Crown Office Row. Now this Temple Church is outside any canonical jurisdiction, so no laws apply, which is exactly the same way as the predecessor of Kim and the Trust was run. It's as though it didn't exist. The Trust was known as the Unknown Country, so then you cannot apply jurisdiction to it. Now the master of the temple is appointed, and it takes place by sealed, non-public patent, without induction or institution. Like I said, the present Queen of England is not the Crown, as we've all been led to believe. Rather, it is the bankers and attorneys who are the actual Crown or Crown Temple, which was run by the Rothschilds. The monarch aristocrats of England have not been ruling sovereigns since the reign of King John in 1215. All royal sovereignty of the old British Crown since that time has passed to the Crown Temple in Chancery, and yet some people think that the Magna Carta signed by King John is of benefit to the people. No, he signed over everything to the Egyptian Israelite cult is what he did. And it was the Knights of the Temple of Solomon who pushed King John to sign off on the Magna Carta. Who controls all the legal aspects? The Temple Bar again, called the British Accreditation Registry, of which all Americans are still subject to British Crown law and rule. You see, that Independence Day you celebrate each year is 100% fake. Bar means to fasten, block, prevent, and used in a gate. What is at the entrance of the Temple Bar in London? A gate. The Queen of England requires permission to enter that region. Now, bar became a body of laws in 1600. A bar is also in a courtroom. It is the rail separating the judge. He is then approached by a barrister. Then we have the mark of the beast known as the barcode. The term debar, which means to exclude. In essence, we are barred from them, and their inner control system is what they are saying. Unless you are a high-ranking member of the Freemasons and their worship of all things Egyptian mashed into modern-day Hebrewism. Even their symbols of justice scales that are placed everywhere legal is again a reference to Egypt and Thoth and the cult of Ra. Bar mitzvah, another term for bar. Mitzvah means commandment. He commanded to be bound is what that means. Hallelujah means to praise or hail Jehovah or Yahweh. Oops. Beulah means married woman. Beulah is the feminine past particle of Baal. He married, which means all women are married under contract to Baal. Oops again. Culture is a harvesting term. The origin was preparing the crops yet to be harvested. And remember, humans to some are considered as crops to be harvested. Still think your culture is something to be proud of? It's a harvesting term. Bel is another derivative of Baal, like the festival Beltane. Bel is Baal and Tane is fire. Remember the fire pit in the Temple of Solomon? So when you do the celebration of May Day, that's what you're celebrating. Child sacrifice, and let's all dance like prats around the maypole. Always in an anti-clockwise motion, which is exactly the same way as the Muslims do around the black cube. Cycling the energy away. Layla, You've Got Me on My Knees, famous song by Clapton, except Layla is a tribute to Lilith. Layla means night and the moon. And another line in the song where it says, before I finally go insane, aka lunatic, luna being the operative word. Now, supposedly that song was written based on a Persian poem in the 500s, a love story, quote, involving a non-consummation narrative. There we go again, born of a virgin. Of course, Lilith is known as Adam's first wife, compared to Eve. The term Jericho, which comes from Yarika, which also means moon or month. Month derives from the word moon, and Jericho is relayed as an old moon cult. That's Lilith again. The origin of the word Holocaust and its meaning in the 13th century was sacrificed by fire and burnt offering. What was the brazen altar called in Solomon's temple that sacrificed children to Moloch? The altar of burnt offerings. That's what Holocaust really means. Tribute to Solomon and Moloch. It was not until 1957 that it was referenced by that name, Holocaust, for what happened in the concentration camps. Then we come to the term covenant, an agreement or contract that is bound. What is the Hebrew word for that? Testament. Why would a so-called God's book, old or new, be a contract to bind to? The term ethnic. The original meaning was pagan or heathen, which is a term used to describe non-Hebrew and its derivative Christians. Yes, that's where Christendom came from, Hebrew. And it comes from the Greek word ta'ethna, which translates in Hebrew as goyim. Ethnic cleansing makes much more sense now, doesn't it? It means destroying the non-Jews. Baptized was originally pronounced baptized. Bapa means father, tized means to make definite. Contractual changes that have been definitized, or in other words, bound to the Father who is the Lord, Anu, or Baal. And so in essence, you are owned by them. Tetragrammaton, the Hebrew name of God, it is said, translated into 4 letters as YHWH or JHVH, and articulated as Yahweh or Jehovah. Tetra means 4, gram means letters, and their real hidden god out of Egypt again, Aton. So it started off as 4 letters, YHWH. So how did that morph into Yahweh or Jehovah? And here is why. The Masoretes were a group of Jewish scribe scholars who worked between the 6th and 10th centuries CE, based primarily in the early medieval Palestine. in the cities of Tiberias and Jerusalem, in Palestine, see, as well as in Iraq, Babylonia. Each group compiled a system of pronunciation and grammatical guides in the form of diacritical notes, called niqud, on the external form of the biblical text in an attempt to standardize the pronunciation. Paragraph and verse divisions and cantillation of the Jewish Bible, the Tanakh, for the worldwide Jewish community. In other words, phonetics that suited them. And this is why they deleted phonetics in schools. It has to be taught again, because it hides the hidden word, and they translate and make you repeat it the way they want you to hear it. Remember, words have frequencies. And one of the frequent cases was the Tetragrammaton, which according to later Jewish practices should not be pronounced, but only read as Adonai. Of course, earlier we mentioned in the Melchizedek about the Adonai Zedek. Adonai means my Lord, and there is Anu again. Or if the previous or next word already was Adonai as Elohim, which means God, the combination produces non-words that would spell Jehovah and Yehovah, respectively. How do you jump from Adonai and Elohim and the Lord to Jehovah? I guess common cause, not just maths either. But according to tradition, the truths of the Kabbalah were known to Adam. Of course they would, he of scaly skin. Quote, what his mind held, no mind since has been able to conceive, unquote. Indeed, he was. Not one of us is why. Like I said, Adam was their creation, not ours. And another reset of humanity. And yet, he was able, it was said, to transmit a glimmer of this knowledge to a few of the great souls that descended from him, such as Hanok and Methuselah. They were the Grand Masters. There's that Templar reference again, and Freemasons, who taught Noah, who in turn taught his own students, including Abraham. Abraham studied in the academy of Noah's son Shem, and sent his son Isaac to study there after him. All sounds like very Waldorf Steiner, that to me. Because all the elites and these Jewish nobility race all go to the Waldorf Steiner schools. Ain't that right, Shane? Isaac in turn sent his son Jacob to study with Shem, and with Shem's great-grandson Eber. And Kabbalah is the book of demons and incantations, stated to be the tree of life and the macabre, but actually it's the tree of death and Darth. Kabbalah is a book of demons and incantations. Oops. Now, one of the secret signs of the Kabbalah is to get your index finger and middle finger and join them together. The ring finger and the little finger and do the same. Then separate the middle and ring fingers, with 2 fingers either side still joined together. And you have the popular Vulcan sign done in Star Trek by Mr. Spock. Oh dear. That is a Kabbalah sign. All in your face when you find out the real truth. And Leonard Nimoy was Jewish, hence the sign. We are all told that these well-known names in the Bible and the scriptures were all human, when they were not. So let's look closely at how long they lived during their time here. Now we're all told the story that Adam was cast out into the wilderness, we are told, and yet he seemed to do rather well for himself in the so-called wilderness, as Adam lived to 930 years of age. Methuselah, son of Enoch, grandson of Noah, lived to 969. Noah himself lived for 950 years. Abraham 175. Noah's son Shem lived to 600 years, and Shem's son Isaac lived to 180. Isaac's son Jacob lived to 147, and Shem's great-grandson Eber lived for 464 years. And yet you have to ask yourself with an open mind here, why were they living to between 600 and 900 years plus when we are lucky to live to 80? Something is seriously amiss here with critical thinking, not mired in religiosity and dogma. His story has lied through its teeth at us, with their bullshit stories of God's chosen ones, people living to 900 years old, bushes spontaneously going on fire, and then worse, talking to you. God drops off the laws sealed in blood on a mountain in a blaze of fire and smoke, talking snakes in the Garden of Eden. God's creating plagues, famines and deluges. Moses darkening the skies for 3 days, the parting of the ocean to let good guys across and then closing up for the bad guys. Walking on water, the list goes on. And they call us conspiracy theorists. This is beyond madness. And as stated previously, religion was created by the fake gods as an experiment to take humans further away from source. So we're not one-on-one with the one. And our own inner connection to it. Make it all external. Pray to the sky for the Messiah or the gods to return, which the people all bought into, whilst they laughed at us hysterically.